Queen of the night, she was honored and feared as protectress of the oppressed and of those who live on the edge.
She had lace on the dress.
They're considered fashionable.
He said war is hell.
They paint their faces blue.
She said I was once an exotic dancer.
Rattlesnake flags were widely used during the American Revolution.
Kathryn?
That is also my mother's name.
Kathryn found the shoes near a Liffey quay.
It was a former red light district.
It was a known prostitute's walk.
Kathryn found the shoes.
There is also a horse fair there.
Gadsden presented a copy of the flag to his state legislature in Charleston.
The third day, the prince went down with his gun and a silver bullet in it. He was not long down when the whale came and threw Trembling upon the beach as the 2 days before. She had no power to speak to her husband till he killed the whale.
As an unscientific sampling of art in the public realm this summer confirms, contemporary outdoor art tends to offer unobjectionable, mildly decorative, or entertaining and relatively empty experiences.
She could see all around her and was evoked at crossroads.
He told Lincoln
the city of Savannah was a Christmas gift. She said,
"My feet are like little peaches. They bruise easily."
There are frequent attempts to equate pornography and eroticism, two diametrically opposed uses of the sexual.
A striking illustration of that old-new dichotomy straddles East 60th Street and the southeastern corner of Central Park.
Because of these attempts, it has become fashionable to separate the spiritual, psychic and emotional, from the political, to see them as contradictory.
She reminds us to accept change and transitions. She helps to release the past, especially those things that hinder our growth. She asks us to let go of what is familiar, safe, and secure, and to travel to scary places.
"10 years ago I was there."
She said, "That's the Witch's Hill."
She was from Donegal. He was from Roscommon. She left. Her brother would get the farm. He left. There were no jobs. She said she would never go back. He would, only if she would.
The Georgia peach is famous for its sweetness.
In Chinese folklore, peaches are associated with magical talent.
Taoism, with luck and immortality. They are still a traditional
birthday gift in China.
They came here to have something. They came here for this. They came here for this.
They came here for this.
The word erotic comes from the Greek eros, the personification of love in all its aspects. Born of chaos, it personifies creative power and harmony.
She has 7 rays of light coming from her head. And her torch could bring the underworld to sight.
During renovations in the early 1980s, the names of the Afro-American men killed at Fort Wagner were carved into the back of the stone setting.
Then the whale went out, turned over once on the broad of his back, and showed the spot for a moment only. That moment, the prince fired. He had but one chance, and a short one at that, but he took it and hit the spot, and the whale, mad with pain, made the sea all around red with blood and died. That moment, Trembling was able to speak and went home with her husband.
Many Gullahs served in the Union Army.
We dance through life.
In total war, there is little difference between combatants and civilians. They are of a particular country.
If you don't dance with who they tell you to, then you don't dance at all.
The Ogeechee
takes its name from a Creek Indian word for
our mother.
At Laguna, your mother's identity is the key to your own identity.
The U was associated with the alphabet and was sacred to her.
The Gullah preserved their African linguistic and cultural heritage.
Georgia's founders first wished to prohibit lawyers, slaves, Catholics, and liquor from entering the colony.
It was surveyed and designed by slaves.
She said, "When I was 6, I trained a chicken that walked backwards and was in the news and was the high point in my life. Everything since has been an anticlimax."
The principal horror of any system which defines the good in terms of profit rather than in terms of human need robs our work of erotic power, life appeal, and fulfillment.
He marched to the sea and set fire to material goods.
He called this tactic
hard war. Scholars called it total war, a separate class of warfare.
Indians think it is important to remember, while Americans believe it is important to forget.
She wrote in the Southern Gothic style. Unusual effects guide the plot. Cultural characteristics are revealed.
Most of their ancestors were brought in through the ports of Charleston and Savannah.
Lafayette wrote to Washington and said he wouldn't have come if he knew slavery would still be legal.
They were held in arched brick warehouses built under the sidewalks. At Andalusia, she raised and nurtured some 100 peafowl.
Fair and Brown had new dresses and went to church every Sunday. Trembling was kept at home to do the cooking and the work. They would not let her go out of the house at all, for she was more beautiful than the other two, and they were in dread she might marry before them.
The Robert Gould Shaw Memorial on Boston Common commemorates the first volunteer Afro-American regiment of the Union Army who lost their lives in July 1863 during the assault on Fort Wagner in Charleston Harbor.
One Sunday, after the other two had gone to church, the old henwife came into the kitchen to Trembling and said, "It's at church you ought to be this day instead of working here at home." "How could I go?" said Trembling. "I have no clothes good enough to wear at church, and if my sisters were to see me there, they'd kill me for going out of the house."
He followed the vision. They followed an ideal.
He follows a female figure in billowing robes, an allegory of victory.
Walking the roads at night, she was described as shining or luminous. Others say she's invisible, perhaps only glimpsed as a light, a will-o'-the-wisp.
She said she came here when she was 11.
The price of cotton was set on Factor's Walk.
Children are sold into the global sex trade every year. Often they are kidnapped or orphaned. Sometimes they are sold by their own families.
Outdoor art isn't what it used to be. It once honored heroic individuals and upheld values that whole populations could embrace.
Natives of Georgia Peach Country viewed it as a kind of Eden.
Bible verses are printed on the side of crates.
For slavery fled, O glorious dead, when you fell in the foggy dew.
She believed the created world is charged with God.
She is good to increase the herds of goats and flocks of fleecy sheep. If she will, she increases from a few, or makes many to be less. She is good to increase the herds of goats and flocks of fleecy sheep. If she will, she increases from a few,
Life leads the
or makes
thoughtful
many
man
to be
on
less.
a path of
Life
many
leads
windings. The thoughtful man on a path of many windings. Now the course is checked. Now it runs straight again. Now the course is checked. now it runs straight again. Here winged thoughts may pour freely forth. Here winged thoughts may pour freely forth in words. There the heavy burden of knowledge must be shut away in silence. But when two people are at one in their innermost hearts, they shatter even the strength of iron or bronze. And when two people understand each other in their innermost hearts, their words are sweet and strong, like the fragrance of orchids.
No one was at the station
except a woman who resembled a character in 8 1/2. She latched on and followed for a while. On my first day in Dublin,
no one was at the station except a woman who resembled a character in 8 1/2. She latched on and followed for a while. I was ill at ease. The last day at Howth's Head was sunny, so everyone was out. I descended the bricks to touch the edge of the water. I turned around to go back up and saw the same woman who I had seen on my first day in Dublin.
She stood, leering down at me from the pavement above.
I became unsettled.
My mind revolved. She wouldn't go away, so I tried to dodge her.
They could have been twins.
They could have been twins.
The henwife put on the cloak of darkness, clipped a piece of the clothes the young woman had on, and asked for the whitest robes in the world, and the most beautiful that could be found, a pair of green shoes.
He has been called the first modern general.
He was the Irish-born American sculptor of the Beaux-Arts generation who most embodied the ideals of the American Renaissance.
She accompanied Persephone from the underworld along with the moon goddess Artemis.
The legality of prostitution and the societal attitude towards it vary considerably. It can be seen legally as a job like any other job, or considered a form of exploitation of women. If it is considered an immoral act, it is sometimes punished with the death penalty.
An ancient relief dedicated by a racehorse owner shows her with a hound beside her, placing a wreath on the head of a mare.
What I found in the physical space was towering, overpowering, carnal. What is it to dance? What is it to dance? Walk a mile in my shoes, if the shoe fits. Standing in my shoes, to stand inside it.
Many of the priests in her sacred groves were former slaves who'd been released to work in her service.
Horse, 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 horse.
That moment she had the shoes and the robe, and she brought them to Trembling to put them on. When she was dressed and ready, the henwife said, "I have a honey bird here to sit on your right shoulder and a honey finger to put on your left. At the door stands a milk-white mare with a golden saddle for you to sit on and a golden bridle to hold in your hand." Trembling sat on the saddle, and when she was ready to start, the henwife said, "You must not go inside the door of the church, and the minute the people rise up at the end of Mass, do you make off and ride home as fast as the mare will carry you."
The Cheyennes say, "A people are not conquered until the hearts of its women are on the ground."
But the high soul burns on to light men's feet, where death for noble ends makes dying sweet.
She is a pre-Greek goddess whose form echoes that of Lady Liberty. I wonder if that French sculptor knew that.
It displays a kind of traditional skill and idealism that practically no one possesses anymore.
I'm here. Oh, we have her here for nothing but to put out the ashes, said the sisters. But the prince and the others wouldn't leave the house till they had seen her. so the two sisters had to open up the door. When Trembling came out, the shoe was given to her, and it fitted exactly. Then Trembling spoke up and said, "Do you stay here till I return."
It's hard to imagine a public sculpture of a hero today that would not be regarded by one faction or another as partisan.
Then she went to the henwife's house. The old woman had put on the cloak of darkness, got everything for her that she had on the first Sunday at church, and put her on the white mare in the same fashion. Then Trembling rode along the highway to the front of the house. All that saw her the first time said, "This is the lady we saw at church."
The Sea Islands were the first place in the South where slaves were freed.
To say one is prostituting oneself or whoring oneself means you are selling yourself or your services for a cause that someone else thinks is unworthy of you.
Hazel Motes walked along downtown close to the storefronts but not looking in them. The black sky was underpinned with long silver streaks that looked like scaffolding, and depth on depth behind it were thousands of stars that all seemed to be moving very slowly, as if they were about some vast construction work that involved the whole order of the universe and would take all time to complete.
I parted then with valiant men, whom I never shall see more.
No one was paying any attention to the sky. The stores stayed open on Thursday nights so that people could have an extra opportunity to see what was for sale.
Still in peaceful dreams, I see the road leads back to you.
He termed the collective unconscious as a part of the mind that is the product of ancestral experience. It contains such concepts as science, religion, and morality. It is a reservoir of the experiences of our species. She described her writing habits in a letter dated July 13th. "I must tell you how I work. I don't have my novel outlined, and I have to write to discover what I'm doing. Like the old lady, I don't know so well what I think until I see what I say. Then I have to say it over again.